Welcome to the Midnight Mind. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here and give the video a like while you're at it. It really helps the channel. It's midnight, and you know what that means. It's time to step into the mind of Carl Jung.
There are people in this world who seem harmless at first. They smile, they charm, they blend in, but underneath something else is moving. An energy that unsettles, manipulates, even destroys those who get too close. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who spent his life exploring the hidden depths of the psyche, warned us that the most dangerous forces are not out there in the world, they are inside us. And when someone refuses to face those forces, they leak out into their relationships, poisoning everyone around them. Jung believed that every human being carries unconscious shadows, hidden fears, desires, wounds, and instincts that we deny. Left unexamined, these shadows don't disappear, they take control, shaping behaviour in ways we barely notice. This is why some people feel magnetic but leave you drained, why others seem moral yet are secretly cruel, why some explode in rage without warning. Among these patterns, one of the most destructive appears in what can be called the unconscious manipulator. On the surface, they don't seem malicious. They're not plotting your downfall, but they are ruled by projection, the act of unloading their inner wounds onto others. Jung wrote that projection is one of the most common psychological dangers. Instead of recognizing their flaws, the unconscious manipulator casts them onto you. If you're insecure, they accuse you of arrogance. If they are dishonest, they suspect you of betrayal. If they are angry, they call you hostile. The danger here is subtle. You find yourself constantly defending against accusations that don't make sense. You start to doubt yourself, to wonder if you are guilty of things you never did. This person has made you the carrier of their shadow. You become the scapegoat for their unresolved wounds. And the more you try to explain, the deeper you sink into their game. Projection is powerful because it blinds both people involved. The one projecting truly believes their story, and the one receiving it feels trapped in someone else's nightmare. The only way to deal with an unconscious manipulator is awareness. See the pattern, name it, refuse to carry what is not yours. If you don't, you risk being consumed by a shadow that never belonged to you in the first place. Another figure Jung would have recognized is the persona obsessed. He described the persona as the mask we wear to fit into society. It is the role you play at work, the image you present online, the polished version of yourself designed for approval. Everyone has a persona. It's part of being human, but the persona obsessed lives entirely through the mask. They have no real self underneath, only performance. At first, this can seem attractive. They're confident, well put together, always saying the right thing. But spend enough time with them, and you start to notice cracks. Their laughter feels forced, their compliments feel rehearsed, and when life pushes them into situations where the mask doesn't work, they collapse. Anger, paranoia, or sudden cruelty slips out because they have no inner foundation to hold them steady. The danger of the persona obsessed is that they pull you into their theatre. You begin to feel pressure to play a role around them, to match their performance. Real intimacy becomes impossible because there is no authentic person behind the mask to connect with. Over-identification with the persona leads to emptiness, and emptiness is dangerous. It makes people brittle, prone to breakdowns, desperate for validation. If you sense someone is living only through image, be cautious. The persona obsessed may not set out to harm you, but their hollowness creates chaos. They will demand constant attention, constant affirmation, constant applause, and in the end, you may find that you were never in a relationship with a real person at all, only with a mask. Both the unconscious manipulator and the persona obsessed show us how unexamined shadows spill out into the world. They remind us that the most dangerous people are not monsters in the dark, but ordinary individuals whose denial of themselves make them unpredictable and unsafe. And they warn us of something even deeper, that unless we confront our own shadows, we risk becoming exactly what we fear. Another figure Jung would have recognised is the Shadow-Denier. This is the person who refuses to admit to any darkness within themselves. They present as virtuous, calm, and endlessly positive. But what lies beneath is a different story. Jung called the shadow the dark side of the psyche. Those urges and instincts we repress because they don't fit the image we want to project. For the Shadow-Denier, this repression is extreme. They insist they are above anger, above jealousy, above selfishness. But the shadow doesn't vanish just because you deny it. It waits, gathering strength until it finds a way out. For the Shadow-Denier, this often takes the form of sudden, explosive outbursts. The person who prides themselves on being endlessly patient one day lashes out in uncontrollable rage. The friend who claims to be free of envy begins quietly undermining those they feel threatened by. The partner who insists they are never jealous begins to suffocate the relationship with suspicion. The danger of the Shadow-Denier is their unpredictability. Because they refuse to own their shadow, it controls them from the dark. They are the last to see their own flaws, but the first to act them out when the pressure builds. Jung believed that true maturity comes from facing the shadow, integrating it, and learning to live with it consciously. Those who deny it entirely are a danger not just to others, but to themselves. Closely related, though more deliberate, is the moral controller. This person cloaks their need for control in righteousness. On the surface, they seem principled. They talk about values, ethics, morality. They position themselves as defenders of what is right. But beneath this facade, their real motivation is domination. They use morality as a weapon, not as a guide. You can recognise the moral controller by how their principles always place them in the position of authority. They tell you what is acceptable, what is forbidden, what is good, what is evil. But these rules bend conveniently to suit their needs. They criticise you for your flaws they excuse in themselves. They demand sacrifice from others while secretly serving their own interests. Jung would say the moral controller is projecting their own shadow under the cover of righteousness. The traits they most despise in others are often those they cannot admit in themselves. Their anger at immorality is often a mask for their own suppressed desires. This makes them dangerous because they believe their control is justified. They don't see themselves as manipulative, they see themselves as virtuous. And that makes it almost impossible to challenge them. Then there is the complex-ridden. Jung introduced the idea of complexes, clusters of memories, emotions, and associations buried in the unconscious that can hijack our behaviour. Everyone has them, but in some people, the complex takes over completely. They're not acting from the present moment, but from an old wound, an unresolved trauma, a forgotten story that still lives inside them. You may have seen this in someone who reacts far too strongly to a small event. A simple disagreement turns into a storm. A minor rejection feels like abandonment. A casual comment triggers disproportionate rage or despair. This is not about you, it is about their complex. Jung described these moments as being possessed by the unconscious. The person is no longer themselves. They are the child they once were, the victim they once felt like, the pain they never resolved. The danger of the complex-ridden is that you can never predict when the storm will come. You may feel like you are walking on eggshells, careful not to trigger something you don't understand. And because the complex is unconscious, the person rarely takes responsibility. They blame you, the situation, anything but the wound inside them. Over time, this drains you, leaving you feeling responsible for someone else's unresolved history. Jung's warning here is vital. Until a person faces their complexes, they will remain chained to them. And if you are close to someone like this, you may become chained as well, trapped in cycles of drama that have nothing to do with you. What ties all these figures together, the Shadow-Denier, the moral controller, the complex-ridden, is the refusal to face what lies within. Each is dangerous in their own way. The first because they erupt when least expected. The second because they disguise control as virtue. The third because they drag others into their unresolved chaos. Jung's psychology gives us the language to see what is really happening. It teaches us that when people refuse to face themselves, they become ruled by what they deny. And the cost is often paid, not by them, but by those closest to them. Another figure that Jung's insights help us to recognise is the psychic vampire. This is not the gothic creature of folklore, but something far more subtle. These are the people who feed on your energy. They arrive in your life full of need, and before you realise it, your time, your attention, your vitality belongs to them. At first, it may feel flattering. They depend on you. They confide in you. They lean on you for support. But soon you notice that the relationship is one-sided. When you're drained, they are energized. When you're struggling, they're absent. Jung believed that the psyche is sustained by energy, what he called libido in the broader sense, not just sexual energy, but the force that animates life, creativity and meaning. The psychic vampire is dangerous because they draw from your energy without ever replenishing it. They use sympathy, guilt, or constant crisis to keep you hooked, until you feel responsible for carrying their existence. You can recognize a psychic vampire by the way you feel after spending time with them. Do you feel stronger, lighter, more alive? Or do you feel depleted, heavy, anxious? Energy doesn't lie, and the danger of staying close to a psychic vampire is that over time you begin to neglect yourself. Your goals, your peace, even your health start to shrink, sacrificed to their endless hunger. Jung would warn, be cautious with those who always take but never give. Compassion is important, but so are boundaries. Without them, you risk becoming a shadow of yourself. Finally, there is the Imitator of Light. On the surface, this person seems enlightened. They speak the language of wisdom. They quote spiritual teachings. They present themselves as guides, mentors, healers. But Jung taught us that true integration comes only through shadow work, through facing the dark within. The Imitator of Light skips this step. They wear enlightenment like another mask, using spiritual talk to hide their unresolved wounds. The danger here is deception, not only of others, but of themselves. Because they speak with conviction, it's easy to believe them. They may gather followers, admirers, even whole communities who see them as advanced souls. But beneath the surface, their shadow festers. And eventually, it breaks through. In hypocrisy, exploitation, or collapse. Jung warned of the inflation that occurs when someone identifies with archetypes of wisdom or divinity without grounding them in real self-knowledge. The Imitator of Light believes they are beyond ordinary flaws, and this illusion makes them blind to the very darkness controlling them. If you meet someone who claims to have transcended the struggles of ordinary people, be cautious. Wisdom is humble. True depth does not boast. The Imitator of Light is dangerous because they promise guidance but deliver illusion. They appear to lift others, but in the end, they often lead them astray. Taken together, these 7 figures, the Unconscious Manipulator, the Persona-Obsessed, the Shadow-Denier, the Moral Controller, the Complex-Ridden, the Psychic Vampire, and the Imitator of Light, reveal one truth. The most dangerous people are not those who openly embrace evil, but those who deny their own inner world. When the unconscious is ignored, it doesn't disappear. It leaks out, shaping behavior, warping relationships, creating chaos. And the closer you are to such a person, the more likely you are to be drawn into their storm. Jung's work is not about labeling others to condemn them. It is about awareness. Once you recognize these patterns, you can protect yourself. You can see the projection for what it is. You can refuse to play along with the mask. You can set boundaries with the energy drainers. And most importantly, you can begin to see those tendencies in yourself. Because the truth is, we all carry the seeds of these dangers. At times we project. At times we wear the mask. At times we deny our shadow, moralize to control others, or fall into old complexes. We may even find ourselves tempted to imitate light without doing the work. The difference between those who are dangerous and those who are not is self-awareness. The dangerous refuse to see themselves. The safe are those who are willing to look into the mirror no matter how uncomfortable it is. Jung wrote, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." When you know your own shadow, you are less likely to project it. When you face your own wounds, you are less likely to drain others. When you resist the temptation of the mask, you allow for real connection. So, the lesson is clear. Stay alert to the dangerous patterns in others, but also turn inward. Ask yourself, where do I project? Where do I wear a mask? Where do I deny my darkness? Or use morality to control? Where am I ruled by old wounds? Where do I drain others? Where do I imitate light instead of living it? The work of individuation, becoming whole, requires this honesty. And when you do this work, you gain something priceless. You become less vulnerable to manipulation. You become less drained by others. You become less fooled by masks and false light. Most of all, you become less of a danger to those around you. Jung's warning was never just about them, it was about us. The line between the dangerous and the safe runs through every human heart. The task is to face it, to own it, to integrate it. Because once you do, you are no longer at the mercy of the unconscious. You become, instead, its master.
If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button for me. I really would appreciate it. And if you have any thoughts on today's episode, I'd love to hear them. Leave me a message down in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.